Okay, I'm pretty well out of daylight here. I was going to make a video first thing this morning, but my plans changed because I had to bury some livestock this morning, which I wasn't planning on doing yesterday. But what that's done kind of changed the plan of where the video was going to go next, but I'm going to talk about now something that's just as important and I was going to get through anyway. And it's topical because I had this conversation then with my sons this morning while we're digging a grave. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. Funeral rites and passages and resurrection or reincarnation ritual. And how I came to reincarnation. Now, I came to reincarnation without any Germanic myth, without any of the appropriate source material that I'm talking about today, which is congruent with my bloodlines of Germanic history. And I came to the conclusions because, well, I had to work things out for myself when I was growing up. There was no internet until I was a teenager. And I was very limited to the source material as far as alternatives to Christianity goes. The only things that was in the textbooks and encyclopedias and things that I had available were things about Greek, Roman and Egyptian mythology, which resonated with me because it was not Christianity. But it wasn't quite right. It felt better, but it wasn't quite right. Now, by the time I was a teenager and the internet came about, I was dabbling in occulty kind of things because I had then, and still do to this, and this is all the same topic, had a fascination with immortality and eternal life. My perspectives have changed slightly, but I'm going to share something that I did when I was 15, and I think this is important. I think this is significant, and I think this has got something to do with Mimir and Hugin, and probably Moonin, because Moonin was the drive and the inspiration, the desire to live forever. Now, the only difference between my ideas about immortality and eternal life between then and now is my understanding of the possibility, the possibility of the flesh being resurrected. Because what I came up with when I was 15 years old, with no understanding of pre-Christian pagan reincarnation myth and ritual, funnily enough, that wasn't available. Why was it not available? It's like they want us detached from our culture so that we can't re-upload our software, hey? But what happened when I was 15 is I had this idea. Now, before I explain the idea, I want to explain that for the longest time, I've lived very, you might say, iconically, and not in a way that I'm special to everyone else, but I live with icons as far as I've always been a very sentimental and symbolic person, right? So what I'm getting at is when it comes to things like what I wear the same thing every day. Now, like a uniform, that's what I mean. Iconically, as in a uniform. I could be identified without a photo of my face. I could be identified by describing how I dressed. Now, that's changed between when I was 15 and now, once or twice. But what I mean by that is, like, I never wore the same shirt every day, but like today, I'm wearing the same clothes that I've been wearing for I don't know how many years now. I've got 7 of everything, 7 of the same pair of pants, 7 of the same pair of same shirt and everything like that. So it's like a uniform, because I don't care for, oh look, today I'm going to wear something different. You know, it's always been the same. It was different when I was 15, but the point is, even then, I understood and I valued the ritual of repetition. Jewelry, clothing, and sacred items. These are things of Mimir, external memory, right? So I was toying with the idea of sacred enchantment, right? Mimir is the external memory, the thing that's kept outside of the body. It's a companion that you carry around. It's like an external hard drive. So when I was 15, now I'll get to the point. When I was 15, I had this idea of how I would be resurrected in the future after I died. And what my plan is, or was, it's still the same plan, but the mechanics have differed. My plan was to create a tomb, a coffin, sarcophagus at the time. I was very into the Egyptian stuff at that time, and the parts of the self in Egyptian mythology are much the same as in the Norse and the Germanic and all pagan pre-Christian tradition. Just the names are different because the language is different, but it's very, very similar. So my plan was to take a sarcophagus, that's why I use that word, a coffin, and what I was going to do is wear all my iconic pieces of jewelry, my sacred weapons, and my iconic clothing, and all my most personal effects, the things that would identify me. And I was going to take all them, and I was going to do this ritual where it involved a lot of candles and incense and stuff like that. And I was going to spend the night in this sarcophagus meditating with great intent, Moonin, with great intention. And my intention and desire in this ritual was to enchant all these items, this box and everything in it, so that when I die I would be cremated. My ashes would be kept in an urn, along with my personal effects in another box to be kept safe until the time came where someone, presumably a family member in the future, would take these sacred objects and they would lay them in the box as they were when I laid in there that night with all that great will and intention and desire. And then they'd scatter my ashes in there. And this is where the fantastical child mind came in. Somehow that would magically resurrect the flesh and all, because it's in that urn in the ashes. And now that's pretty magical and rubbish idea. That's the kind of thing that you'd see in like a fantasy movie, right? Out of the ether the body will return. Okay, now of course that's pretty much impossible. But what do you know about pre-Christian Germanic reincarnation rituals? This is the kind of thing that you do when you go into the burial mounds. You go in there and you find your things from your past life. The difference here is that rather than the flesh being resurrected via some magic, the way it works is you resurrect. You don't resurrect, you reincarnate through your children, or if not your direct children's line, your family. It's in the blood, all right? I've had more epiphanies about reincarnation, and I'm getting a bit too long in this one, that led me to understand why it's in the blood. But I don't think I need to explain how it's in the blood on this video, because I think the people watching understand the power of blood and genetics and family. So the only thing that's changed between now and then is my realization that the body will not come from the ether in some magical fantasy. The body comes from biology. It comes from your children and your children's children. That's where the new hardware comes from. It doesn't appear from the ether, it appears from the womb, my placenta. It appears through the family, and that child is the returning flesh. And the child returns and finds these enchanted items, and these enchanted items are a big part, a big part of where your memory returns from. Your memory is not just in your blood. Some of it is, a lot of it is. Your Hugin and your Moonin, your will and your ideas, your desire and your thoughts, they're in the blood, mostly. You get that from your ancestors via your DNA, if you will, your genetics, your blood. It's written in your blood, okay? But a lot of it comes from Mimir, which is the external container for thoughts and will. The external memory. This is the amnesia recovery process in all these sacred places. You go to sacred places, sacred objects, personal effects remind you who you were. Now, I came to this conclusion without the right environment. I was plucked from my ancestral home to grow up in a shitty little city unit where I couldn't even see the sun rise and fall. And for the longest time I was so angry, and it took me a long time to work out why. But when I would return to my family home to see my grandparents, and then return back again into the city, when I was about 9 years old, that's when I realised what my problem was. It was that I can't see the sun rise and fall. I'm not in my natural environment. It saddened me, and I fucking broke down in tears on the toilet when I was 9 years old, because I could hear the bird song of the sunset, but I couldn't see the sun setting, and I knew the sun was going down because of the sound of the birds. And that absolutely broke me, because I knew I wasn't supposed to be here, there, where I was. I know where I'm supposed to be, here. And where I have moved to now is my great-grandmother's home, or was my great-grandmother's home growing up. And part of the deal is when I bought this home and took this home on, was that all her personal effects be left here, which included things that belonged to my great-grandfather and other family members. So this house here is Mimir's well to me. It's like a fucking museum. And, you know, I was coming to I already came to these conclusions about how things work before I knew the law and the lingo of my blood, and before I possessed all this enchanted property, right? It's got to do with a big tree over there too, which I'll talk about in another one. But I came to these conclusions with something from within, which is my will, my Moonin and my Hugin. These things came to me. Hugin and Moonin found me. And I think I owe it to them to tell it back to you how I see it. And I'll get into this a bit more in the next one.